allow for substitutions.
Senate's back in order. Senator from Berkeley, Senator Grooms, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Unanimous consent request.
State your request, sir.
Unanimous consent to carry over the amendments that are on the desk over to third reading, allowing the authors to make substitute amendments and to give this bill a second reading.
Is there objection to the unanimous consent request to carry over amendments that are on the desk, allowing them to do substitute amendments? Objection is heard. Senator from Orangeburg, what purpose do you have?
I might be okay with it in a minute, but I've got some questions I want to ask, I guess, the subcommittee chairman or somebody about the bill itself before we do that.
Senator from...
Senator yields.
Well, we got amendment number 4, and the senator from...
Mr. President, I'd like to be recognized to speak to the amendment.
Okay, I'm going to recognize the senator that senators gave it the floor from the standpoint. Senator from Berkeley, Senator Grooms is recognized. Senator from Orangeburg, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Chief Senator, will yield for question.
Senator, yield for question. Senator, yields for question.
Senator, can you tell me what this, if we adopt this bill, what it does to the interplay between the counties and the state swapping roads within their systems? Because I know that seems to be an issue. And can you describe the problem, and does this bill address it?
It doesn't address it as much as I've wanted it to. We understand that our road system is very large for the size of our state. We have 41,000 miles of road that our DOT maintains, and DOT believes that there's somewhere around 20,000 miles that are essential to a statewide system, and there's perhaps probably somewhere between 15 and 20,000 miles that they would consider to be non-essential to a statewide functioning network. And the bill requires them to identify roads that are non-essential to a state highway system and then work with county governments to see if there is any agreement over the counties accepting these roads into their system. There's no requirement. It would be by mutual consent.
So this doesn't require counties to take over roads?
No, the underlying bill is strictly permissible. We had talked about early on having some sort of revenue measures that would make it more attractive, but what we did in the bill, we took out all the revenue raising measures, but we left in the framework in case they could be added back.
Well, did you know that what concerns me a little bit is when you say that the department says that maybe 20,000 roads are not essential to a statewide system, and of course I represent counties that a long time ago, these farm-to-market roads were built for agricultural purposes to make sure that farmers could get their goods to a central location, to the cotton gin or wherever. Mm-hmm. And they're not essential for me to get from Orangeburg to Myrtle Beach, but they kind of are essential for the people that live on these rural roads to access almost anything. I'm just concerned that if the department is trying to devolve all responsibility for all rural roads, that's a problem. And I'm assuming you don't think that this is trying to do that.
It's not, and here's where I believe where this is headed. Right now, there's certain statewide standards that have been adopted. You may have in your county, you may have a rural road that needs resurfacing right now, but to be able to upgrade that road under current statewide standards that have been adopted, those two 10-foot wide lanes may need to be extended to 14-foot wide lanes with an additional 4 foot of shoulders added, which would require additional right-of-way, which puts the cost so high that they may never meet or at least in our lifetimes, the criteria that's been set forth because of the length of the road and the number of people that use it to be able to build that road at that cost. But a county may say, you know what, if you allow us that road, if we put that road into our county systems, we might not be, or we wouldn't be subject to statewide standards. We have adopted our own standards. We'd be happy with that. How about give us $3 million and we'll call it a day? It allows that type of flexibility, and that's why we put that in there. And the idea would be that the DOT could then actually have conversations with certain counties about roads they may want to take over the operation or may even fold over into their systems.
All right, so one other issue on that point then, if a county did accept a road into the county system with a lesser width of road or not having to have all the rumble strips and all of that that the new roads require, could the county use CTC funds for the resurfacing of those roads?
It would be, yes, they would be, yes.
I mean, assuming that the CTC committee prioritized it.
If the right, because a certain amount of dollars have to be set aside for state roads, a certain amount has to be set aside, or the remaining has to be used by the county in some other fashion.
All right. And if the county wanted to use, if the county was one of those counties that had a penny sales tax and they wanted to put it on the list before the voters to say that we're going to use part of our penny to resurface the Larry Grooms Highway, they could do that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
It creates a flexibility environment that doesn't exist right now.
Okay. But I just want to make sure, and I think you've told me this, it's not requiring counties to absorb any roads into the county system that they haven't reached some accommodation with the DOT about.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Senator from Orangeburg.
I'd move that we carry over all amendments and waive the rule for.
Could I restate that?
Senator from Berkeley, Senator Grooms.
Mr. President, I'd like unanimous consent to be able to carry over all the amendments that are on the desk. I understand there's 3. Is that correct? To carry over the 3 amendments that are on the desk, allowing the authors of the amendment the ability to make corrections to those amendments, carry those over to third, waiving the 3/5 rule, and give the bill a second reading.
Is there objection to the unanimous consent request by the senator from Berkeley, Senator Grooms? Hearing no objection, so ordered. The bill will receive a second reading of the Senate today.